Well, it's great to see you again, Freddie. I'm just thinking you and I have been friends now for over 25 years, something like that. We met in the
30 years.
30 years. Wow. Yeah, in the 90s.
Yeah.
We've been friends, we've coached each other, we've been through all sorts of experiences together. But one that came up for you recently is something that's close to my own heart because, I've got good health now, but most of my life I didn't. I struggled with that. I'd love to hear about your amazing story because I've worked with a lot of people on health and weight loss issues, but what you've done, I think, has been pretty amazing. So what happened, Freddie? What was it that really motivated you with this big change that you've made over the last 6 months?
Yes, I got complacent with my health due to focusing so much on the people I love and serve, family, friends, other people. And so much so that last year was a challenging year for me. Certain things in my family and in people I was helping, there was a lot of crisis, especially coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
So I had actually had bad health and bad condition creeping up on me for a while. I was aware of it, but I guess I was in a state of even maybe depression. I don't know. But I reached a place where I was 92 kilo, and I come back from Thailand. The day I got back, I got COVID or something like it, but it was so severe, I had to end up going to a doctor. I'd been to a naturopath that didn't quite work out. So I went to a doctor, and they read the litany of death over me. They told me that I had fatty liver, scarred liver tissue. They told me that I was diabetic too, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. How this could all occur in such a short time blew my mind. And it was a catalyst. It was for me to say, look, enough is enough, real red line in the sand. When they said to me they were going to put me on to metformin, insulin, statins, and some other drug, I said, no, you're not going to do any of those things. I'll see you in 3 months. And the doctor sort of chuckled a bit and said, yeah, sure, we will. Well, 3 months to the day, I went back, and I'd gone from, at that stage, I'd gone from 92 to about 78. They couldn't believe it. That was in 3 months.
In 3 months.
And I had reversed the majority of those issues, possibly all. But I continued on the journey because I had momentum, and I realized where I was before COVID had come along. And there was no way known I was going back or I was going to give up my original dream, and that is to be an elite, world-class, mature-age athlete. So I just kept pursuing the diet, pursuing the walking and the exercise and the disciplines that I had paid fortunes to many trainers, because before COVID I had an exercise physiologist, I had 2 personal trainers, I had a health coach, a nutritionist, a chiropractor, a physiotherapist, a massage therapist. I had a Formula One team. Yeah. This time, without help from anybody, but from the 3 or 4 years of investment, and Pilates back then as well, and yoga. But for the investment I made in all those people to train me over several years, I was just able to access that training from memory and apply it to myself. And then after my birthday, I realized I was going to rule a red line in the sand, which I did, and say, I'm going to live my dream and my passions, and I'm going to make myself my highest priority. And now I'm at 72.2. I've got down as low as 71.9, but the weight's no longer important because now I'm back to building muscle so that my body fat ratio stays the same and my ATP and muscle fitness is there. Now, my passion in life is to raise consciousness and awareness in myself and others. Mm-hmm. And it's to help people learn, grow, and have a fulfilling life. I love to see people win. So This is all part of that, Russell.
So that's interesting because I've seen that in you a lot, and I've seen the work you've done with the charities and helping people with overseas with the water and stuff like that. You've done so much giving, but it's easy for those of us that are in a giving profession to neglect ourselves a bit. But what I want to come back to that's really interesting, because as I mentioned before, I've worked with a lot of people with weight loss. And what I've learned is that if we don't resolve the emotional drivers, people will often drop some weight and then usually put more on afterwards. But you did in 3 months, you dropped 14 kilos. That's, I think, just over 30 pounds for those that are not in metric. So 14 kilos, about 30 pounds in just 3 months. What was going on? What was your strategy for that?
I guess we are a reflection or a product of our own self-image, our own self-worth, our own self-love, and our own self-respect.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I achieved 4 or 5 years ago before COVID. I went through the same process exactly. It's a mirror image. So what was going on for me is I will not be deterred, and I will get everything I had back and more. And this time I have. I mean, at my peak last time, I had 2 more kilo of muscle mass, but I also had 10 kilo more weight.
Yeah.
This time I'm hovering around 72 to 73, which it's pretty good. You know, if I don't get down below that, that's okay, because I am actually stacking on muscle mass again. I must be, because I'm getting stronger due to the exercises I do. I've got a morning routine. I've got a push-up routine. I've got an afternoon, 3-day-a-week gym routine. Mind you, I've got my own gym now, and I run that from home, and I'm working out in that gym 3 times a week. And I do a bike ride 3 times a week, an occasional swim. I play badminton on a Thursday night. Now, it sounds like a hell of a lot, but if it's spaced out and organized, it's not too bad, because I poke in all my coaching, counseling, consulting, and odd jobs here and there. I've got a life that I'm very, very happy with.
Yeah, that's great. Now, in the process, you and I a few times chatted about diet and nutrition. But first of all, I'd like to ask, what was the biggest change that you made nutritionally or diet-wise?
Well, straight up, I went to keto, because that's an easy way to strip off weight for anybody and everybody in the short term. So I knew keto would give me a knee-jerk reaction of urgency and excellence straight up. It's not a long-term solution, because at the end of the day, if you don't have a balanced, fulfilling diet, you'll crash it out, you know. And there may be some diehards out there, but I wanted to do something that the average Joe in the street could do and people could find, instead of saying, oh, well, that's you, you know. I wanted to find ways that people didn't need equipment, didn't need trainers. I gave up the bread, but I sensibly had some now and then, you know, a slice of sourdough here, a slice of pumpernickel bread there, but never more than once in a fortnight, once in a month, you know. So if I'd eaten that, it wasn't like, oh, I'm back or I've backslidden. I've just consciously gone and had something so that I've still got the right gut bacteria and happiness. Rice was easy for me to give up, because I realized rice is not going to lead me towards my goals. And I don't crave rice or miss it. I've had rice twice this year. Twice. That's this year in, what's it, 8 months now, you know, 7 or 8 months. And that they were minor portions. Pasta, oh my God. I've had about 6 pieces of penne, you know,
Yeah, okay.
in the whole year. So rice, pasta, and bread are gone. The carbs and the cakes and all that sort of stuff. While my metabolic machinery was broken, I was stalwart. I was a Spartan with my diet. Now, if I have a tea cake, you know, like it's half the size of a cupcake, you know, like if I have a tea cake and it's got sugar, it's got dates and walnuts and all that sort of stuff. If I have one, and I have it once a month, it takes me about 2 days, 3 days to rectify that. Whereas before, with the broken metabolic machinery, it was taking me 2 weeks to rectify something like that. So now I understand the cost of these things, if you want to enter into them, and what reasons psychologically you might deviate. But, I went down the track of no carbs. I also looked into a lot of things that would address the accusation of having coronary and heart issues. So I started to use cayenne pepper. olive oil with lemon juice and cayenne and ginger and things like that. So I got right into all the herbs and spices, and I was even having raw papaya fruit to lower my LDL. I would eat the crushed seeds. They're very bitter.
Oh yeah, I've eaten those. They're also great for getting rid of parasites.
Yeah, yeah,
So, but yeah, it's almost like chewing peppercorns, isn't it?
it is. And the thing is with the whole diet thing, and people don't understand this, you have to work out what is actually working for you. You know, I mean, if you're externally relying on external sources and you're not keeping your own data and your own reactions and your own reflections, you'll never know what really works or what doesn't work for you.
Yeah, yeah,
For instance, we've had lots of conversations about oats. Now,
yes,
I've got off grains, I've gone off the oats and everything, but occasionally I cycle back onto them just so I don't go crazy, just so I can have a lazy breakfast now and then and get through it. And then when I run out, I don't go down the shop and buy it. For instance, I buy Lindt 100% cacao chocolate, right?
yeah,
And I'll go through maybe a month or 2 months where I have one or two blocks, you know, maybe 12 gram or something a night. Now, I haven't bought that chocolate now for over 4 weeks. So I cycle in and out of things. Yeah.
yeah. That's interesting because in many ways that's similar to the diet I have. I found though personally for me that the effect that grains have on my body, I'm better off having none ever. And every now and then I might have a tiny bit, but more than a tiny bit every couple of months is not worth it for me.
I'm
Uh,
learning that. You
yeah,
see, I wasn't body aware. I wasn't conscious of what affected me positively or not, but because I've used Noom as an app and I've logged every morsel and atomic scrap of food that goes into me and counted the calories, I can see at the end of my journey with Noom, I want to go all the way through it and be a Noom expert just so I can talk about it and talk about the pros and cons of these things. A lot of people have opinions about things, but they only gave it 5 or 10 minutes. I want to see it through to the end of all that it has to offer.
yeah,
And one of the things I realize is with your awareness is that you won't need these apps or these helps. Your common sense eventually digs in, and your intuition eventually digs in. But you need to be trained and competent first. Yeah.
yes. Yeah. It's interesting you talk about different things. For you, it was you need to have a bit of pumpernickel bread or a little bit of a tea cake every now and then. For me, it was the dairy. And
Oh,
I didn't realize how much dairy affected me. But as a kid, I was a dairy addict. I would come home from school and I remember the old bottles of milk. They were a pint, 600 mils. I'd down a full bottle of milk, and then I'd run out and play. And that was like 12 years of my life. That was every school day. And so there was a big emotional attachment for that. That was almost like my signal that I'm now home. I'm finished for the day. And when I started working on dropping stuff, I was reluctant to drop the dairy because I loved it so much. But it was interesting because a lot of those foods, it takes a long time for you to overcome the negative effects. And I find when I stop dairy, it takes me a week or two to get the full benefit of not having it. But where I noticed that I had a problem with it is when I'd stop for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, and then I go, I just feel like some yogurt now, and I'd have some yogurt, and all the symptoms would come back.
right. Well, an amazing thing's happening for me, and that is that in the beginning, it was hard. And then in the middle, there were cravings, and some of those cravings just got the better of me, and I overate and put on 2 or 3 kilos. It scared the bejesus out of me, so I went back to my discipline. But nothing now has to be. This is exciting. It means I've got conscious choice now rather than being dictated. And I think what it is your body in control or is your soul in control? Because when the body dictates, then it will run you all over the shop and create all sorts of havoc. When the soul dictates, it might say, all right, I'm going to have a conscious treat here. And it's just a treat, and it logs it. No, it's not the beginning of a spiral or a downward thing. It's a once-off situation. Like, for instance, yesterday we went to the movies and saw Oppenheimer. What a movie. But there were all sorts of trappings and temptations in the shopping centre. I succumbed to none of them because I realised today was a day where I felt fresh and clean and good. And then I saw this thing where it had a chicken schnitzel salad. There was no additives, no dressing. It was just good salad and chicken, right? So I bought that, and I got a beef salad for the evening as well, right? And when I come home, I added a bit of avocado to it, and there were no treats, even though I'd gone to the pizza theatres. I didn't need a treat. Now, sometimes when it gets away on me, I have that treat, but I don't beat myself up anymore. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel like I've backslid because I know that the holding pattern now, the goal of where I want to head and what I want to do is so strong and vibrant within me and so within reach. I'm too excited about what I'm moving towards now than to worry about giving food a better place or position in my life. I enjoy what I eat. It's tasty, it's delicious, it's healthy. And the treats have lost interest. I don't know why or what, but I just couldn't kick the chocolate. Now I'm not having any desire for chocolate at the moment. It may come back, but at the moment, there's nothing out there calling to me that worries me about food. Now, that wasn't achieved in 5 minutes. That's been stalwart for the last 8 months.
Yeah.
And someone said the cravings will go. The cravings last about 20 minutes, I believe. And if you can get through that 20 minutes, the cravings stop. So through substitution or going to something healthy or going for a walk instead or just having a glass of water can really alleviate you off the cravings. It's when you think the cravings are never going to stop or they're going to get to a point where they're going to drive you nuts. Now, early in the piece, I folded many times. But now, if I have an outcome that I want, because I know that if I'm going to get stronger and healthier and maintain not just my weight, but my whole metabolic machinery, my whole physique, everything, I know that if I don't have the right sleep, hydration, and protein and nutrients, I'm not going to be able to lift what I lifted the day before.
Yeah.
And today I broke a record with my push-ups. I absolutely knocked out of the park today. In 25
How many push-ups did you do?
266 in 25 minutes. And that's
amazing. And what's that in sets of?
The sets. Hang on. Here we go. This is the 30-day challenge, and I made it 30 days so that I'm not stupid about it because like doing that many push-ups isn't always healthy.
Might be easier if you hold it close to your chest.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Yeah.
So it's 6 sets.
Yeah.
Right, in 20 minutes. But because I've gone beyond 200 to do the figures I'm doing now, like 266, 250, 243, it's actually 25 minutes. But I've got 9 days to go for my 30-day challenge. Now,
and is that 52 push-ups in a row on your first set?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 52 today, 42, 43, 43, 43, and I think the last one's 43. And I got to tell you, getting the last push-up, sometimes I'm pushing there for 10, 15 seconds to get my arms locked out to say it's a real push-up, and I'm just grunging away. So they're not easily done.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, most 20-year-olds would struggle at doing 20 push-ups, let alone 50.
I think everyone can do what I'm doing. I'm just a normal average person. I don't have any special talent or powers. I struggle with everything I do. So I figure if I can do it, there isn't a person out there. If they wanted what I wanted, I just simply set it up as a challenge for fun to see what I could do, what I can push. I've got a feeling by the time the 9 days are out, I'm only 34 away from 300. I reckon I'll crack the 300. That's the little goal. If I can do 300 and I go, yes. And then I'll set some other challenge with some other exercises and things like that, because as we've mentioned many times, people doing push-ups, they should also do, rows and pulls.
Yeah, I just invested in one of those TRX things.
Yeah, TRX. So, I got the TRX, but I've got nowhere to hang it yet. I'm looking around the property where I am to see where I can hang the damn thing. But
for those that don't know, TRX is a exercise device that's basically some nylon with clips and handles that you can attach to a tree or a doorway or something like that, and used to do pulling exercise. Well, actually, there's a whole range of exercise, but the thing that I'm most interested in is getting the balance for the push-up. So with a push-up, you're doing this, and it's getting the triceps and some of the front of the chest area. You want to do the opposite, because you don't want this to be too strong pulling you forward and no muscles to straighten it back. So doing this where you're almost horizontal and pulling yourself up in the reverse way to a push-up is a good exercise to balance what you do from a push-up.
Yeah, well, the thing is too, when you do so many push-ups, if you don't have a reverse exercise, you can increase kyphosis and curvature of your spine and back, and bringing your shoulders forward. So you need something to bring your shoulders back. I lie on a massage table on a half roller, and I have dumbbells, and I stretch my hands right back. I don't know. Yeah, right back here.
Yeah.
At that level. So I'm opening up the pecs and opening up the chest and the whole deal. And I'm also got bands where I pull in like this and pull in like this. I've got a whole array of selective opportunities to contour my body and build it the best way I can. And the other thing too is with TRX, if you want to get into it, there's so many exercises and complete workouts with TRX. So you're not just doing a reverse and a horizontal correction. You've got the latitude where you can get arc movement of your whole arms and everything else. And you can do push-ups with the TRX as well. So you can use them in so many ways, like kettlebells. You know, if you're really well trained as a trainer, you can instruct your clients to use so much out of small amounts of machinery and equipment. You can get a lot of mileage.
Now, Freddie, I wanted to ask a bit about the weight loss, because I know, in Australia prior to COVID, the research was saying that over 70% of adults, slightly more men than women, over 70% of Australian adults are overweight or obese. And I know around most Western countries, there's something similar going on, particularly in the US and Australia. I think New Zealand's in a similar situation, where we've had a diet that's increasingly processed food, especially processed carbohydrates and sugars, and people are stacking on weights. Now, I was looking at the graph of your weight loss with this, and the first part of your process, you dropped weight like you were jumping off a cliff. But then after a while, you got to this zigzag point. And there was a point where we did some EFT on that. Sure. It's interesting that that I've done a lot of work with people using EFT for weight loss and resolving the anxiety or the other emotional drivers that are causing them to crave the food. And I had a particular interesting one that, for me, chocolate was what I craved. And it was only after doing EFT with it that I realized that chocolate was what my grandmother gave my sister and I when we were little kids. And chocolate represented to me grandma's love. So anytime I wasn't feeling that great, I could get grandma's love all over again just by eating chocolate. We have that Pavlovian response. But when I first was introduced to EFT, the main things we would demonstrate EFT with in groups was either on physical pain or applying it to chocolate craving. And my issue with chocolate was interesting, because if I didn't have it in the house, I was usually okay. But if there was any in the house, or if I accidentally walked down the wrong aisle of the supermarket, I'd get not one but two blocks of my favorite chocolate. And when I got to the checkout, I'd give the girl the wrapper to scan because I'd already eaten the chocolate. And after doing EFT with other people, the following Easter, I was given some chocolate, and I remember Verena said, "It's Lint, your favorite." I've gone, "Oh, great!" And it tasted too sweet. It tasted artificial, and I spat it out and threw it in the bin. And I'm going, "What the heck happened there?" But it was doing the EFT. So what was happening for you in that process? You had that meteoric drop in weight initially, and then you got to the point where you were zigzagging up and down, getting close to your goal and bouncing back up. Tell me about that.
Well, when you do absurd sudden things like you go cold turkey into keto, your body goes into a state of shock. And of course, you're going to lose weight because you've stopped eating a whole lot of calories and things like that, and you haven't figured it out. So eventually the body goes, aha, I know what's going on here. So it fights back. And, you'll find most of the people have, like the biggest loser and all the rest of them, they take off all this massive weight and then they put it all back on and some, because a slow healing is a permanent one. What I'm about now, after all of this and being at the weight I am, now, how do I move into a life of normalcy and balance? One of my highest passions is I created a model called the life balance and awareness model. The central triangle is you balance, your self-love, your self-respect, your self-balance, all those things, right? That's in the central triangle. That's your words, thoughts, and deeds, your physiology. The triangle above that central triangle is your health. If you don't have health, you can be the richest man in the cemetery, like Steve Jobs,
Yeah.
So then comes wealth, and then comes happiness. So what it is for me is ultimately, and this is the answer to a question a deeper answer or more layer to the question you first asked me, what was going on for me. Every time I've walked that model of health, wealth, and happiness, my life has flourished and blossomed. It was too easy, too simple, and I had shiny object syndrome. So I wander away from my model of living with balance, and I would end up in trouble again. What I've realized, again, this time at 70 years of age, the moment I get back to that model health, wealth, and happiness and the central balance, my life straightens out and lights up again very quickly. So this time I'm going to stay and walk that model for the rest of my life and teach it to others because it works. It's simple. It's not complicated. You just basically have to establish your right rhythms first, then venture forth into life. You need to have a compelling future, an outcome that you want, a definite major purpose.
That's an important one. And I noticed on that too, as you're coming towards the end of your month challenge, you're setting another goal.
Already.
And I think that's something really important when we're setting goals and working on goals. As you're getting close to achieving one, you want to already be starting to put the next one.
That's right. Overlaps.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing for me, Russell, is that FKC Health was procured, Frederick Tracy Consulting, because I was a counsellor and I've been counselling for a long time. And I thought, because I was 2IC at Sage Active Clinic and we were working with exercise physiology and myotherapist, and I had all that exercise going on, it was going to be health that I was in. And I got a job in allied health. I realized that my ultimate dream, and I have the digital side with all the website stuff and online, but the ultimate dream was to create the Catalyst Consciousness, Awareness and Wellness Center. I've had that dream since I was 15, and that's a center where people come from all over the world to 70 acres, a health retreat resort where people learn strategies of diet, exercise, meditation. The list is endless, naturopathy, homeopathy, whatever it is, acupuncture, Chinese traditional medicine, where people can investigate what works for them And there are processes that people can go through. Now, the thing is, for my ultimate goal, I set a goal with Instagram. I got it off Gary V, where you have to go on and do 90, not just likes, but comments on the people's posts a day for 90 days. It was insane. It was crazy. That was 2.5 hours every day going on Instagram and not just saying great post or yeah, thumbs up. I would actually read the post and I would reply exactly according to it. And that gave me a couple of hundred followers, because people were appreciating that. We have now on Instagram about 300, somewhere around 260 to 300 posts on Instagram. We have about 6,200 followers there.
Wow.
Now, similarly with YouTube, I got inspired through my journey to talk to health professionals that they could give passionately to the public information that would be useful. So I started interviewing there. Well, we're now up to around about 16,500 subscribers and about 90,000 views. So the whole thing about the future journey is expansive. It's reaching your full potential. I've always said this. I don't want to get to the end of my life and meet the man I could have been or should have been or wanted to be. I want to meet the man that I was supposed to be. And I have time to turn around and do that. I wasted a lot of years, made a lot of mistakes, backtracked, neutralized a lot of things. But the more I get focused on my own purpose and my own vision, the more people are going to be helped. So I can still help people, but more indirectly by helping myself rather than putting myself at deficit and loss to help other people. And that might be a message for people out there, that the more you make yourself a priority and you keep yourself well, makes you strong and resourceful and resilient for others rather than weak and insipid. And in the moment of crisis, when they need you the most, you're too weak to help. No, you've got to be strong for you, your family, your friends, and the world at large. So, get healthy, get strong so that you can live into a more optimistic future.
Yeah. And look, that's interesting lesson for all of us that are in that helping industry, because I training EFT practitioners, I have so many people that go, I just want this so I can help people. Yeah, but what's your goal for yourself? Because if there isn't any energy exchange, if there isn't something that you're benefiting from it, sooner or later you start to feel the resentment.
Yeah, resentment.
And then you're not doing it. If you're not allowing yourself to be financially successful as well, you can't help anywhere near as many people. And if you're not loving to yourself on all levels, with your health, with your exercise, your life balance, with your financial side, the whole lot, then it's just not going to work out. You can't help as many people.
Well, the beauty is the moment self-respect kicks in and self-love, the happiness and the wealth show up. Like, I struggled with money for a while. I'm not struggling with money anymore. It's not that I made it a major focus. It's just part of the life balance and awareness model. Because when I was explaining that model once, and I got to the last triangle, which is happiness, and I said yourself and your self-awareness creates your happiness, and then your family, and then finally others last. My current then wife asked me, why are we down here, down the bottom? And I said, well, I had you on a pedestal up the top. I was not well. We were broke. And I was not happy. I said, I put me at the center of my own happiness. I got healthy. We got wealthy, and you can go shopping. She said, I love it. Leave it exactly the way
Isn't that beautiful? It gets back to that analogy of in the airplane, when the oxygen masks drop, you've got to put yours on before you help everyone else. You can't help anyone else if you're passed out on the ground.
Well, people admire successful people, and I think success, my definition of it, is that you feel okay, you're happy, you're content, you're enjoying life. That's pretty successful. I don't care what you own or you don't own, or what grandiose things you've done or haven't done. If you're happy, wow. And I don't mean elated, happy 24/7. It's just, I have things to complain about just like everyone else, but I get through them very, very quickly. This happened, that happened. This is So what? Suck it up,
Well,
princess. Get over it and get on with it, you know? Because look, at the end of the day, when I see the troubles of the world, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in the top 2 or 3%. You know, the rest are just scratching with discontent, unhappiness, judgment on others. I mean, why judge other people when you're doing the exact same things yourself?
yeah. Well, to be honest, if you're living in somewhere in the Western world, you know, whether it's Australia, US, or most of the countries in Europe, you know, that automatically puts you in the top 5% because
Yeah,
there's 90 odd percent
yeah.
that don't get meals regularly, that don't get to live under a good roof, etc.
Yeah. Look, I considered living overseas. There are some attractions there for me. But where else in the world can I get access to all the resources and nutrition here? We got the best in the world and we don't know it. We don't appreciate it. We take it for granted. I've traveled. I've been to third world countries. I've traveled Europe. I've been over 30 countries, over 100 cities. I've seen the highest opulence and wealth, and I've seen the lowest degrading, deplorable depravity. And I've got down in the dirt with the suffering, and I've dined with the kings, and Australia's it. You know, like it's a pretty cool place. And I like the world. I'm a citizen of the world. You know, I'm not locked into anything, but I know that if people don't appreciate what they have here, you know, all they do is whinge. What really strikes me is most of the conversations I hear from people are about discontent for what's going on around them, what's going on in the world. I know there's crap happening. I know there's skullduggery and things wrong. But I'd like to hear more conversations of gratitude and joy and appreciation for life, because I tell you what, in amidst when I do battle with the world, there's just so much to be thankful for, grateful for, to be happy for. And people say, oh, it's all very well for you. And I say, no, I've had weeks where there's no food in the cupboard or there's no money in the wallet. I've had weeks like that, but I don't care. The trouble is that people are always looking at what they don't have rather than appreciating what they do.
Now, Freddie, there's something I really wanted to ask you here. When we first met, you had a very successful engineering business. A lot of stuff was really rocking in that area, and the weight didn't seem to be an issue. I can't remember exactly where you were at as far as fitness goes there, but you seem to be pretty fit and healthy. What happened on an emotional perspective that got you to where you were seeking comfort in food and eating food that you knew wasn't right for you?
Oh, okay. I've been health conscious most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in pretty good shape most of my life. And when I ran my engineering business and my security companies, I was just wired, you know, I was so active. The nervous energy just burned the weight off all the time. I was skinny rake. But then after my second marriage, I got a little depressed and complacent and a little bit sedentary, and that's when the weight creeped in. And I was able to turn things around like that pretty quickly. But I've had 3 incidences of health challenges, and each time I've picked myself up off the floor and sorted it out. And there's a saying, third time lucky. I ain't going back for anything. This time I've drawn a line in the sand forever.
Well, what I'd say from the model I work from is luck's probably not got that much to do with it. If we know how to be healthy and we're not doing it, then there's a limiting belief or an emotional pattern that's getting in the way. There's some conscious or unconscious thing that's getting in the way.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need, and this is how most people pretty much ignore their health or give very little regard until they get hit by the Mack truck. And for you, that was when you went to the doctor and he gave you that whole list of pretty serious things that were going wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. To know and not to do can be not to know. So for me, what was the priority? While I was seeking love and validation and recognition in the world, I was ignoring myself. And I think anybody who does seek love, validation, recognition in life is also in a similar boat. The cost is too high. The ratio of people doing stuff to get recognized, to get validated, to get loved, it is in imbalance and it'll never work. But when you turn that focus in on yourself and you start to validate yourself, you appreciate yourself and you take care of yourself, you quite quickly come out of the mess. And it's recognizing that, which most people don't, even when they've achieved it. And that's why they have the yo-yo syndrome. I recognize it because I've had several goes at making that journey back to wholeness, back to completeness. So it's feeling complete, fulfilled, knowing that your life has a trajectory and a purpose. And they say life is meaningless and there is no purpose. Well, my purpose is to love thy neighbor as myself and love myself. Because if I love my neighbor as myself and I don't love myself, I'm going to love my neighbor pretty poorly, right? So now I realize that love and compassion I wanted to give everyone else, I better give it to myself first. Otherwise, what I'm giving is inauthentic, is unreal, unsustainable, incomplete. But the more I love myself, take care of myself, then whatever love I give out, whatever it is, it's powerful and potent.
Yeah, that's fascinating, Freddie. What I find really interesting is most of the people I know who are having these struggles will consciously say, I love and respect myself. But there's unconscious stuff getting in the way. And maybe that's something that we need to look into next time we get together.
Yeah.
And focus on what are the tools, what are the methods, what are the ways that we can get rid of those unconscious blocks. Because so many people will say, in fact, I remember the first time I got some really good, serious emotional help, I was working with a practitioner, and he said, tell me about your family. Tell me about, I said, I had such a fantastic childhood upbringing. And I glossed over and told all the highlights. And then he looked me straight in the eye and said, now tell me what it was really like. We all tend to bury the challenges, or we think we are burying the challenges, but in essence, they're the things that are driving us to eat what's not right, to have the bad habits that affect our health and our relationships. So that's been really great, Freddie. Let's get together next time and look at how to work on actually changing that belief. So we go from maybe thinking we love ourselves or talking about it, or maybe even recognizing that we don't love or respect or appreciate ourselves. How do we move from there to I love and respect myself and others in a good, balanced way?
Well, I read somewhere on Facebook, like Buddha, if you're not part of the compassion you are dispensating to others, come out of the center of the circle where you think you're the beneficent giver and hold hands with everyone else in the circle and receive the same compassion you're giving. And that was a turning point in my life. And that's happened recently, where I realized if I don't truly, truly, truly love myself, then all my giving is in vain, because it's just a purchase of refraction to get love back. And that's a terrible motive to give. So basically, loving myself first and foremost. The loving I give others is a byproduct. Now, that sounds a little bit selfish. Excellent. It's self-care. It's self-respect. It's self-love. It's self-image. It's everything about self that's not narcissistic, because I don't in any way feel superior to anybody or anything, but I feel pleased that finally love has showed up in my life, that I can feel okay about myself. And then when I see others and I identify with their frustration, their unfulfillment, my compassion and empathy is so much more vibrant, so much more real, so much more connected to their suffering, because I've suffered that way too.
That's great. Thanks very much, Freddie. I think we're out of time now, but let's catch up again and go into that deeper stuff at a greater level.
Fantastic. Thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.